Man, it's been quite a while, hasn't it? I mean, it's probably been like, what, 2 weeks since I made a video. And I know I told you that I wasn't going to make a video last week because I had some stuff to do and all that, but I am here. I am going to do my review of Insidious 2 and The Family, so let's get started. And don't worry, I will do my review of Prisoners and all that in a couple hours. So let's just start off with this. I'm sorry, I miss you guys so much. Anyway, Insidious 2. Now, Insidious 2... First thing I like to say, directed this movie, James Wan, who hopefully everyone knows by now, directed The Conjuring, which was a really good horror movie. It was really good. And, this guy's also, he's made a crap load of movies. None that come up to mind right now, but he's made a lot of them. And, he made the first Insidious movie, and I really liked the first Insidious movie. It was really good, it was really scary, and I really liked the Darth Maul dude, even though he looked kind of weird, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean, guys. It was great. But Insidious Chapter 2, I wasn't necessarily looking forward to this one, but since all the hype was coming out and plus everyone was going to see it, I might as well go see it since I like movies. This is my life. And, I went to the movie theater, kind of trying to expect what I remember from the first Insidious, because, from the first Insidious, this is probably a spoiler for those who haven't seen the first one, so fair warning. He goes inside, he brings back his son, and then all of a sudden, there's something evil. And he literally says it in the trailer and stuff like that. Something evil has followed him back, and he ends up killing that grandmother lady, and then all of a sudden, then the last shot of the movie, Rose Byrne, she looks back, oh, and then it just goes to the title again and all that, and it really does pick up from there. I didn't think there was going to be a sequel to this. I honestly thought they were going to be killed. Like, the wife was going to be killed and every one of them were going to be killed because of this thing that's been brought back, but I guess not. That's not the case. And it literally picks back up. And here's the thing, with the scares in this movie, and, the scares are really just kind of hit and miss at times, There's really that creepy, settling feeling, and then all of a sudden, how in movies, there's always those scares, and they always have to have, like, a big sound, like, dung, stuff like that. And these movies, they're kind of more necessarily calm, but still have that same effect, and they weren't necessarily so effective in that context. But still, I mean, there were some good scares, and then there were some that were just, like, typical, That's all I have to say about the scares, hits and misses. That's really what they are. Honestly, the performances in the movie were actually pretty strong. They held up to the movie standards, in a sense. I mean, just Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne really trying to hold the story together. They actually did a lot better than what they did in the first Insidious movie, which is honestly really surprising. I mean, they're not really going for an Oscar nominations or anything like that, but they held the movie as their own, and that was really good. That's something I really liked about this movie. The story is kind of a little bit convoluted at times, and it just feels like you're taking this direction, oh, you're going this way, oh, you're going this way, but nevertheless, I mean, it's still a pretty creepy movie. I mean, you still kind of get that creepy settling, just not as much as you got in the first Insidious movie, or even The Conjuring for that matter, But that's just me. I mean, some people saw it, some people really liked this movie, some people didn't. I mean, well, not a whole lot of people didn't like this movie, but a lot of people I knew really loved this movie, because they loved the first Insidious, and they really like scary movies, and they honestly probably wet their drawers, crapped their pants, etc., etc. I didn't necessarily have that feeling that, this was going to be better than The Conjuring or anything like that. I did not think it was going to be better. I actually did like this movie for what it was worth, but still, I felt like it didn't deliver as much, or at least as much as the first Insidious did. Sorry, I cracked my voice. Yeah, well, like I said, it just felt like it wasn't up to that first standards. And then again, I mean, sequels don't always live up to the first expectations. It's very rare if they even do live up or even go beyond the first movie in any way, shape, or form. But that's just me. I'm going to give this movie a 6.5. I mean, it's not necessarily up to that 7 where I can really like this movie, but then again, I liked it. It was enjoyable. It had some good scares, but in the end, it wasn't exactly the type of scary horror movie that I love to endure that I knew from The Conjuring. And yes, I like to compare this movie to The Conjuring because The Conjuring was freaking scary. Anyway, now let's move on to The Family. Now, The Family stars Robert De Niro, Michelle Pfeiffer, and that's really all I can think of in mind. Because the other characters, you don't really know their names, but they're actually pretty good in the movie. But anyway, let me start off with saying this. It's about this family that's trying to get out of the mob life, and, it's hard. And the thing is, let me just say this. The story, it actually is an interesting story. I mean, trying to get out of the mob, it is very hard. But the fact that they made this movie into kind of like this, sort of like a dark comedy context of a movie, it just felt like it seems like it works, but at the same time it doesn't. It has that kind of convoluted scheme. There are some good parts about it, and then it has those bad elements to it that just really degrade the movie for being that dark comedy type feel of a movie. I will say this, Robert De Niro, he's a great actor. He's starred in so many great movies over the years. I mean, let's see, Taxi Driver, The Godfather Part 2, Mean Streets, Goodfellas, Raging Bull, Heat, Casino. I mean, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of great performances he's done. But in this movie, recently, in recent movies, you know, it feels like he's always just kind of winging it and stuff, and he's definitely trying to pull off more comedy aspects, kind of like from, not necessarily like when he did Meet the Parents, but I mean like when he tried to do like New Year's Eve and Killer Elite, which he did kind of bring in a little bit of that comedy context. Another movie I'm trying to think of, it wasn't Silver Linings Playbook. He was really good in that movie also, but it wasn't that comedy feel that he usually was trying to pull off recently. But I mean, there's nothing new for this guy. He's just kind of winging in, getting his paycheck and all that stuff. He just doesn't really deliver. He's just kind of like, you know, I'm old now, you know, and nothing else. And that's kind of how some of the performances in the movie feel. Now, it is kind of basically, this movie does, well, let me just say this. This movie technically kind of is basically a screwball, or not a screwball, a spinoff of great movies like Goodfellas or something like that, other great mob movies, because it does actually have a Goodfellas reference in this movie, which honestly was really weird. Coming from Luc Besson, who's made some pretty good movies in the past, I wouldn't think he would make a movie like this necessarily, but that's just me. Michelle Pfeiffer was good in this movie. I thought she was a strong lady. She was kind of like that badass kind of grandma type feel. Well, she wasn't really grandma, but you know what I mean. Because she's getting older and all that stuff. But she held the movie pretty good to that good standard for that dark comedy type feel, and I thought she did pretty good. The kids in the movie were actually very interesting, and the thing that was interesting about them is that you can kind of relate to these kids in a sense, because it still shows, you know, they're trying to survive in high school and all this stuff, but at the same time, they're still having to deal with the conflict of them getting out of the mob and all that stuff, and they do carry on some of their parents' traits, and they really show them in this movie, and they actually made the movie their own, and I really like that about this movie, even though it felt kind of separate from, you know, the Robert De Niro part and Michelle Pfeiffer part. You know, they kind of made their own movie in a sense, but that's just me. Tommy Lee Jones plays the guy that's trying to protect them. He's in the witness protection, and oh my god, I'll be right back.